Alright, so a quick disclaimer before I start this video. This method is a great method, but it does require expensive gear such as Crypt Bloom and tier 90s, and generally just has high requirements because it's very specific. This method is very easy, so you don't really need any skill to do this method, but it is by no means a cheap or budget setup. It is pretty expensive, but the skill level is very low for this. Like I said, it's AFK, you click and just AFK. So I just want to let you know right off the bat that the gear for this method is super specific. There's some alternatives, but not too many, which I'll go through. But if you want to get kills without potentially dying, you need to follow this method as closely as you can, so then you can basically AFK. So please try to watch the whole video if you can, because I'm going to give a lot of small tips and stuff in here and show a lot of specifics. Timestamps will be in the description as well though, in case you need to skip back to a part, but let's get into it. So I'm a big Magister guy. I have over 3,000 Magister kills, and Vital Sparks are insanely expensive right now, and keys to the crossing are super cheap, and my friend told me that the Magister might be possible to AFK with Crypt Bloom, so I went and did a bunch of testing and came up with what I think is a very good method for AFKing the Magister. I was surprised there were no methods yet for AFKing with Mage and Crypt Bloom, and this method will be as AFK as you can possibly get at the Magister. Now keep in mind, you still have to click the obelisk to spawn the Magister, but basically this guide should allow you to spawn the Magister, click on the Magister once, and then AFK for the entire kill without needing to drink any prayer or eat any food during the kill. Then after the kill, you can either do a few more and pick up your loot, or just wait and pick up your loot a few kills later. So first, to start it off, we're going to get into the required gear, inventory abilities, and stuff like that. So we're going to start right away with the gear first and what is absolutely necessary for this method. So you will need 4 pieces of Crypt Bloom. You will also need the Maniacal Aura, a Scrimshaw of the Elements, or a Scrimshaw of Magic is what I use. However, you can replace this with Scripture of Wen, Armadyl Book. As long as you aren't splashing, you should be good to go. Essence of Finality is definitely required as well for this method, along with, at the very minimum, tier 90 dual wield magic weapons like Seismics, which is what I use. Of course, if you have tier 92s, you should use them, but you can get by easily with tier 90s. You will need Cinderbane gloves, as they give massive poison damage. The Chandler's Ring, now this is something that I'm gonna say is required, although I think possibly you could get by without it, but this just provides such a massive damage buff with Greater Concentrated Blast and Asphyxiate. I think it'd be a lot tougher without it, so this is also going to be required for this guide. And then Grasping Pouch, this isn't required, but you'll need to bring runes for a few different spells. And then I'm using the Igneous Calm Edge, but use whatever magic cape you have, as we won't be using Omni Power or anything like that, so whatever cape you have works. So now we're going to move on to the unlocks, abilities, and things that are 100% required to do this AFK. You must have Exsanguinate spell, and you also must have the Animate Dead spell. You also need Greater Concentrated Blast. It's a must-have. You also need tier 95 or tier 99 magic prayers. I tested tier 99 and tier 95 and they both worked well. Your kills will just be a tad bit slower with the tier 95. You need the Maniacal Aura as well, and an Adrenaline Urn or Persistent Rage, although I highly recommend the Adrenaline Urn over Persistent Rage because we want to save our relic slots for other things, which we'll go over later, and the Adrenaline Urn actually works really great here. You must also have a Nihil 2 and Weapon Poison +++, Incense Sticks, and Penance Powder, and of course, Overloads. So next we're going to move on to the relic setup. Now for this, you'll want Berserker's Fury and Fury of the Small, and then the Death Ward relic as your third relic if you have max relic power. Now if you don't have max relic power, I would recommend trying this first with the 2 DPS relics, and then if you're close to dying or you're dying, you can swap one of them out for the Death Ward. You don't need Death Ward, as I did it without it, but it makes a method much safer. Basically with Death Ward, I went 5 hours straight without dying and never died doing this method at all. So next we're going to move on to the ability bar setup. Now this is very important. So first we want to use Revolution ++ with ultimates and thresholds going off. We will have Sunshine at the start of our bar, and then Greater Concentrated Blast. Now you need Greater Concentrated Blast. After this, you need Wild Magic, then Dragon's Breath, then Asphyxiate. Then you want Rack, which will turn into Rack and Ruin with our Exsanguinate spell. Then you want Corruption Blast, Combust, and finally Sacrifice. Now something you could do if you're having trouble is to add Debilitate onto this bar. However, if you do follow this method and use exactly the same setup I use, you should not have any problems at all, as I've tested this for 8 hours straight with no deaths. But if you per se want to try this method with lower tiered weapons, or maybe you don't have something unlocked, you could add Debilitate, although there's no promises it will work as this method seems very specific. So now we're going to move on to our inventory. So for the inventory, we first have Elder Overloads, Weapon Poison +++. We have a Super Prayer Renewal, which is also very important. If you want to never have to drink prayer, a Super Prayer Renewal is needed. You also need Enhanced Excalibur and the Ancient Elven Ritual Shard. You don't actually need these, but they're nice to have to further safen the kills if you use these while looting to gain back some of your health and prayer and give you even more of a safety net. Then we have Adrenaline Urn, which is way better to use than the Persistent Rage Relic, just for this particular method, so I'd highly recommend this, as well as a Vital Spark drop enhancers, which will make you so much more money since Vital Spark drops are going to be, you know, an insane amount because they've gone up so much. This will just double them. Then we have Keys to the Crossing, which you need to kill the Magister. I recommend bringing it 10 to 12. You could do more, but I'll get into why 10 to 12 is a better number to bring when we show the method. And then Quorum Incense Sticks and Penance Powder are absolutely needed too. The Penance Powder coupled with the Prayer Renewal will keep your prayer from ever depleting basically. And then you can bring some Panic Food and Prayer, however I never used any. Alright, so finally on this page you can look at the entire setup all together. So basically you want the gear and inventory exactly how I showed, and then the ability bar as well, and the relics. You do want an Ice or Smoke Nihil summon. This is very important for accuracy purposes. And then I show here a picture of how your buff bar should look. Forgetting one buff can easily get you killed. If you don't have Penance Powder, you're going to run out of prayer. If you don't have Maniacal Aura, you won't deal enough damage. And if you don't have Animate Dead, well, you're just dead. So if you try this method and it's not working for you for whatever reason, you're likely forgetting something or don't have all of the required gear, so make sure to double check all your buffs and gear. I also want to mention, as for perks, it's not really too specific. Just use the best PVM perks you have. I actually had some really budget perks on my Crit Bloom and this just went fine. I had like Biting 2 with Relentless 5, Crackling 4, and then I had Impatient 4 and Enhanced Devoted 4, which are pretty easy to get perks and aren't super expensive. I would just say use your best PVM perks. There's not really something that's super specific to this, although Relentless is the only one I can think of that can really help, just because it can proc on your Sunshine, which can maybe help get you a little bit faster kills, but it's not needed. Alright, so now on to the actual method. Basically, make sure you have all these buffs. Now, there's a lot, including Bonfire Boost, so it's easy to forget some, so double check, make sure your Adrenaline Urn is full and ready to go, and then go to the Magister. Then you want to make sure that you use the Animate Dead spell. If you do not use the Animate Dead spell, this will instantly fail as a method. Then you want to go in and use your Key to the Crossing, and then click on the Magister. Now you should be able to completely AFK until he's dead. Now, the only times you have to do anything is when your Overload, Weapon Poison, and Prayer Renewal run out. You should of course repot as normal. And then the biggest thing that could kill you is to make sure that your Animate Dead is on and to reactivate it when it runs out. If your Animate Dead runs out, you will die. So that's basically it. You should be able to click the Magister once and AFK till he's dead. You should get around 50-second to a little over a minute kills. I would basically watch YouTube and every kill I would just use my key and then AFK again. Keep in mind you have to click the obelisk to spawn the Magister. There's just no way around that, but the actual kills are 100% fully AFK. You can loot every kill or do what I did and loot every 2 or 3 kills. Now remember when I told you about bringing 10 to 12 keys? Well, there's a reason for this, and that is because we'll be tanking the little bombs that the Magister throws at us. Since we're AFK, we won't be dodging them or kicking them away. We should have no problem tanking these, as we will soul split back up very fast, and I've yet to ever die while doing this method. However, this bomb does hit your familiar for 2k damage every time, which means if your familiar gets hit 10 times, it will die, which is pretty annoying. However, if you bring 10 to 12 keys, your familiar should not ever get to the point of death unless you get really bad RNG with the bombs, which does happen. In which case, if your familiar gets to 2k health, just telly out, use the Altar of War at the PVM hub, it'll heal back your familiar, and then go back. It's just a minor inconvenience, but it's worth it to AFK this method. and it only happened a few times to me. But yeah, just to show you guys me doing this method, how it works, you know, show you basically the input I had to do, I'll basically put some music and show you me doing basically a full trip, you know, sped up so you can see, you know, my health, my prayer, everything, and it's completely AFK. I made sure to test it for multiple hours using tier 99 and tier 95 prayers just to make sure I wasn't going to die, and I never died during this whole thing. I got a little low without the Death Ward Relic, but I didn't end up ever dying. With the Death Ward Relic, it's not even close. I'm always, you know, pretty safe HP, so a really good method, and I'll show you that now. So that is the AFK Magister method. So you should be able to get around 60 kills per hour. I think I was getting like 50-second kills, sometimes a little bit more depending on how it went. But you should be able to get around that 60 kills per hour. If you're using tier 95 prayers, maybe a bit slower, but all in all, really good. And the fact that you can basically watch Netflix or YouTube and just look and click, it honestly felt more AFK or around similar to like AFK Greg, which is super AFK. So really nice. Of course, you need to pay attention a little bit to those buffs just to make sure that you repot every time, you know, every 6 minutes or so, when your overload runs out, when your weapon poison runs out, and your prayer renewal and stuff like that. But penance powder makes us super overpowered, and I was really wondering how penance powder would affect different things like this, and the fact that now you can do this AFK while also not having to drink prayer either. You don't have to worry about prayer, makes it even better. So yeah, I hope this video helped you guys out. You can make some really good money here, as I think 60 kills per hour makes you around 30 mil an hour, maybe a little bit more, taking into account the Kopesh and then also the vital sparks, which are, you know, a huge portion of the profit. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, leave them below. I tried to make it as detailed as possible. And yeah, good luck, and a like would be appreciated if this helped you out. Subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one.